I wanted to call up Coach Mike Zampano from Liberty real quick and just give him an opportunity. You know, we love to get coaches connected in these 5 ways. Mike had the opportunity this past year to be a part of our 2018 Team Serve that went to Israel. And so I wanted to just give Mike a quick second here just to share about his experience and what that trip meant for him. So, Mike.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for giving me a chance to just share real quick, guys. Mike Zampano. I'm one of the defensive coordinator over at Liberty University. We're an MCLA program, but you know, we've got pretty tremendous amount of support from our school, and pretty blessed to be able to just serve those guys in that capacity. I've been at Liberty for the last, I was a student from 2009 to 2013, and then joined the coaching staff in 2014, so I've been there for about 5 years now. Myself and Coach Bernardo back there here for the day. But yeah, this was kind of an opportunity that I jumped on literally a month and a half before. I talked to Dan Britton on the phone one day, and was coming back from the NCAA championships, and I just called and I said, what do I got to do to get this figured out? Because this just looks like too good of an opportunity to pass up. And I'm sure a lot of us got to be a part of the Israel trip out there in some capacity, but this just seemed like a really practical way for me. And it exceeded my expectations in almost every way. Just between the organization that Frank and Ryan and Frankie and all the guys that were involved, DC, just really doing an incredible job of just organizing the trip and really every step of the way. I know I kind of get guilty of planning trips throughout the year with our team, and it just seems like there's so many moving parts, and I was just really impressed with the heart and the servants, the heart that those guys really put out for that trip. And just all the teams we were able to impact. I was really only there for 1 week of the 2-week trip, and just seeing each team just being so receptive to what we were able to, what we were there for. Really just reaching out to these guys and sharing the love of Christ in a really practical way, and competing and sharing through the game of lacrosse. So it was a blessing for me for sure. And I remember just the one verse that Frank said often was just, may the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, and give you peace. And I just felt like that was a real powerful time to be able to do that with people in the Holy Land, and obviously the experiences that we were able to gain from going to different places were great too. So if you get a chance to go on any kind of trip with FCA, I had an incredible experience. Being on other trips, this is probably one of the better ones I've ever been on. So I just wanted to again thank Frank and Ryan and these guys. So
no, thank you for sharing. We want to make sure we're sensitive just everyone's time in the room. I know there's a lot of different sessions that are starting at 8 o'clock, so if the guys that are on our panel could go ahead and come on forward, that'd be great. And as they come, I wanted to read something real quick just as we transition into this next kind of part of this morning. Out of the book of Matthew, I'm going to read just a quick scripture. Matthew 24 through 27 says this: "Everyone then who fears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who builds his house on the rock. And then when the rain fell, the floods came, the winds blew and beat on that house. It did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like the foolish man who builds his house on the sand. And then the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house. And it fell, and great was the fall of it." We're all going to face different trials, different tribulations, different challenges in life, okay? You always hear it's not about, when you get knocked down or how, it's about how you get back up, because it's going to happen, right? And every coach in here has faced some type of adversity, and for those of us that can have that foundation, for you that have foundational, strong programs, when you come across those challenges, you can help ride the wave out. So I'm going to turn it over now to Drew Wardlow, who's in charge of our national teams, and he's going to go ahead and talk to these guys.
Thanks, Ryan. Good morning. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to see a lot of faces that I recognize from friends. And just in a moment here, we're going to introduce you 3 young men who have gotten to know over the years. But I would be remiss not to just honor one person real quick. I've been on staff with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes for the last 12 years. And in large part, that's due to a man back there, Coach Larry Story, who took the opportunity when I was a junior in high school to get to know me, find out that I had faith, and say, hey, do you know this thing about fellowship Christian athletes? So just my encouragement to you as coaches, one conversation can change the trajectory of a young man's life, and Coach Story certainly did that for me. So thank you. Just a quick introduction. I know you want to hear from these guys. Coach Stimmel, current offense coordinator at Yale University, 2010 Buckeye Ohio State grad, who's defensive MVP, team captain, Pittsburgh native, father of two, and Coach Stimmel and I have known for each other for a long time. Called him out of the phone book 15 years ago in Pittsburgh, asked him to play on my team, and got to know him, and he's been a great friend. Chris Myers, current director of operations from Loyola College, or university rather, and 2013 Calvert Hall grad, had the opportunity to coach him at Calvert Hall in 2012, won a national championship, won an MIAA championship, and is now on his young coaching journey. And then Coach Jernset, who I've spoken to a lot, who's the head coach at Grove City College, my alma mater. Had to call him and beg him about 6 times to interview for that job, and I finally did. Excited to have him here and share. So, as Ryan shared about talking about how do you build a foundation, we're gonna each individually just kind of go through and give these guys an opportunity to share. But first, Coach Stimmel, just want to ask you, share briefly what your coaching journey is. Maybe highlight one coach who had an impact with you, and maybe a key for these guys who are here about how to build a foundation, a winning foundation, and what that's looked like in your life currently.
Testing. All right, here we go. Thanks, Drew. Yeah, my coaching journey, I guess, is a little bit unique, I would say. When I was coming out of college, playing for Coach Myers in the back, I can remember in my 5th year, I had to take 5 years to finish. So in my 5th year of just doing academic work that last year, Coach was kind enough to let me around the team and just kind of really cut my teeth a little bit coaching and try to figure out if that was something I'd be interested in. At the time, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to take a desk job. I was a business guy, and that's what I was going to do. But that year really helped, I think, shape me and change my perspective on the potential for this career, which led me to Drew Wardlow. As I'm, I think, about to take a desk job, Drew Wardlow calls me and says, "Hey, Grove City College needs a coach. It's an hour north of my hometown in Pittsburgh, and would you be interested?" And I think initially I told you, right, I was like, there's thanks but no thanks, there's no chance. Very persistent. Yeah, Drew was very persistent in this recruitment, and just kind of one of those funny things where I think God really worked on my heart. I prayed about the situation, but I kind of prayed about it in a way like, hey, I'm gonna kind of bring this to God, but I don't really want to do this. You guys know what I'm talking about, type of thing. And as God would have it, he was like, "You're gonna take this opportunity." So a couple weeks later, I called Drew back and ended up taking this job. I had no idea, I think, what I was getting myself into. But really created a heart and a love to develop young men. At this kind of small, MCLA school north of Pittsburgh. When I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and was there for 2 years, and really decided in that second year that, hey, this is a career I want to pursue. I love doing this, and it led me to call Andrew Baxter at Yale University, who had coached me at Ohio State. They had a volunteer spot open, and one thing led to another, and I ended up being the volunteer at Yale in 14 and 15, going to Marquette for a year as the defensive coordinator, and then going into year 3 as the offensive coordinator at Yale here. In terms of coaches, I can't limit it to just one, but I'll be brief. Coach Bresci, when I first got to Ohio State, the biggest thing I think I would take from Coach Bresci, not to limit all these guys to one thing, would just be relationships and the power of them, investing in people, being, I think, real and human as a coach, and realizing that you don't have to take yourself so seriously every second of every day, and how kids value that. Coach Myers in the back has had a huge impact on my life. His level and standard, I think, of accountability is something that I implement on a daily basis. His level of detail and preparation, I think, is second to none for those of you who know him. And really, he's just hungry and persistent in getting the best out of people. And that's how I function on a daily basis. or at least I tried to anyways. Joe Amplo, I had the privilege of coaching for 1 year at Marquette. Again, taught me the power of just how important it is. Every person in your organization, from the players to your staff to all the touch points you have, trainers, anybody your program comes in contact with, making sure that those are good people and that you win with people. And if you have good people, good things are going to happen. And then Andy Shea, one of the best servant leaders I've ever seen, to be honest with you. He does a lot of things well. I learn from him on a daily basis, but he's a guy that leads from the back, so to speak. He invests a ton of time into relationships and is never afraid to get his hands dirty.
That's awesome. Thank you. Chris, share just briefly just how you got your current role, and then in particular, as a high school player, grew up playing for a coach who had a Christian foundation. Maybe just share briefly how that impacted you as a player, and maybe how that's bled into your coaching. For you guys that don't know, who played at Cotton Hall, Coach Brian Kelly, who certainly coaches from Christian Foundation, how that impacted you as a player and a young man, but now into as you take your role as a coach.
Yeah, so I went to Cotton Hall, graduated in 2013, played for Coach Kelly. I ended up going on to walk-on, kind of like a late preferred walk-on to Loyola University. I owe an immense amount of credit to both Coach Kelly and Coach Tooney for making that happen. So I wouldn't be where I am today without those two guys. Going back to Cotton Hall, I'll quickly kind of touch on how I got to where I am today. I made it to Loyola. Kind of 2 weeks into the season, I ended up making the team. I stayed on for all 4 years. I came out from being not the lowest guy on the depth chart, maybe one of the lowest. Kind of working my way up to kind of that in-between second line, third line midfield. So by no means was I an All-American, but I ended up being able to play in about half the games we had my senior season. Ultimately ending our season was to Coach Myers in Ohio State. Had an awesome season, going on to the national championship. So I owe a lot of credit to those guys. And then I ended up going actually going to try to get on to University of North Carolina, at Chapel Hill. Coach Metzbauer was my offensive coordinator my freshman year, actually, at Loyola University. And I was just kind of interested in getting my MBA. I was kind of looking around. There's not really any GAs in D1 anymore, so I was kind of talking to Coach Metzi. Good Coward Hall connection through Coach Kelly. And then I ended up staying at Loyola. There was a guy before me as the Joe Fletcher, who's an awesome individual. Was moving on. Coach Tooney kind of said, hey, if you want to stick around, we'd love to have you. So I became the Dolo last season. That's my first season. Again, good, successful season. Ended up losing Coach Simmel and Yale, so congratulations to them on an awesome season. I've stayed on as the Dolo now. And the whole coaching thing is, it's kind of going on me a little bit. I thought I was just going to get my MBA, which I'm in classes for at the moment. And I was going to get out and do a good desk job. But I think I'm kind of changing, talking to people, all of you kind of people in this room, Coach Kelly, Coach Tooney, Coach Dwan, Coach Van Arsdale, Coach Metzbauer. I've been blessed to have an unbelievable amount of successful Hall of Fame type coaches that I've been able to look at and play for. And then just speaking back to Coward Hall and a faith aspect of Coach Kelly, it's really second to none. And I think it's taken me until today to understand and appreciate that. I think in high school you kind of get taught these things, you get shown these things, but you don't really understand what that means. I think you just kind of go through the motions a little bit. Looking back on it, Coach Kelly has a strong influence in FCA, but it's more than what that just means. I think it's what it stands for too. Just kind of always having your back and being that guy, a coach on the field, but an even better coach off the field, and kind of watching you grow up and develop. And any questions in life, if you have any downs, ups, downs, he will be there to help you. He's a guy that I still text and call. I try to meet up with him consistently, grab a bite, grab a coffee, and just take back, as Coach Simmel pointed out, those relationships. That really the faith aspect, that when in doubt, if you're going through a tough time, that just kind of try to stay positive, have that patience that when they're not for yourself, I think somebody else will bring you up, whether it's a head coach, Coach Besher, Coach Myers for yourself, Coach Tooney for me. I think Coach Kelly does an awesome job of just kind of bringing guys up and leading them into being a successful next step of life, not only as lacrosse players, but as dads, as husbands, and ultimately coaches with team leaders in the business place. He's been instrumental. I can't even describe how successful he's helped me be.
That's awesome, Chris. Thanks. Alec, just briefly share, your pathway to getting Grove City, and then why don't you just get into, Alec is in his second year as a head coach of Division III first-year program. Just share briefly about how you built a foundation for Grove City in year one as a first-year varsity program, and how you rooted in Christ, and maybe some of the results and impact that is given the program from that foundation.
Yes. I'll approach it from maybe a different light. When I was a kid, my dad was always very aware of like people around him, and I always noticed that. I picked up on that when I would, like, first day of school, he would never tell me like, hey, you gotta get good grades, treat your professors well, whatever. It was always. Do you remember when you were in third grade how cool it was when the fourth graders would talk to you? Yeah, I did. Just think about that, and that was like always all the time he was telling me about that kind of stuff. And he was also very aware of the people around him, like yesterday Sharon served me salad at the awards banquet, and that's something that I picked up from my dad, like using somebody's name and you see somebody that just goes through like drudgery and like kind of pick up and just connecting with the people around you. So I think I always had kind of this bent from him to think about people younger than me, which probably led to an interest in coaching. I remember being in high school, and I'll tell the story because it loops back, but the first coach I ever really noticed for like how he coached was Coach Janowski. I remember watching a Duke game on TV, I think after the scandal, and thinking like, man, he just seems like the right guy for this. And I'm like 16 years old, I don't know who the right guy is, but it just seemed like a really natural fit. And I thought he just seems to coach different, and I didn't really know what it was at the time. And so, fast forward, I played at Towson and played for Coach Seaman. I'm on a hot streak with the Howdy Miners man of the year, because I then went on to work for Coach Schillinglaw, who was last year's award winner, which was cool. And it sort of all looped back in that after my second year at Delaware, Coach offered me a job, and at the same time I got a call from Coach Zanowski offering me a job to go down to Duke, and it was like, man, it seems like too much of a coincidence for me that like God seems to really be at work here. And so I went down to Duke and coached there for a couple of years, which was an unbelievable experience. And then Coach Drew, Stimmel said he called him for about a month. I think Drew called me for about a year, and I kept on had absolutely no interest. And finally went and interviewed at Grove City and just found out what a special place it was. And that's sort of been my journey through college coaching. But we're going into our second year, like Coach said. We had a decent first year. We've tried to develop a foundation. Grove City is a Christian university. We've tried to develop a foundation. My faith is important to me as it is to the college. So what we have built, we kind of borrowed something from Coach Ross and Coach Myers last year. I guess we didn't borrow it because we're not going to give it back, but we stole it, and we kind of present our culture in threes. And so it's internal, external, and eternal are our core values. And so internally, we just want our guys to be their best every year, or in everything that they do, every day. We feel like that's a biblical calling for excellence. The second one, external, is just love people. We feel like obviously that's a biblical calling, is to love people well, whether it be your teammates, people around you, people on campus. And then eternally, we want them to be eternally focused. And so our identity is never in lacrosse. We tell our guys all the time we're not better if we win, and we're not worse if we lose. Thankfully, at the end of the day, we're not going to be judged on our win-loss record, because most of us would not be getting in. And with that in mind, we want to stay focused on the things that we are judged on. And so for us, it's that simple. It's just be your best, love deeply, and be eternally focused, and we feel like our young men can be really successful. Hopefully that they have grasped onto that in year one last year, and we got a bunch of young guys this year, and we're trying to continue to move forward with that culture. But we're pretty excited about the way that we're headed.
I think any great coach knows that you first win in the locker room. And just briefly share what Yale does to build a culture, a foundation that led to eventually win a championship, and maybe briefly share about how your faith informs, your foundation and faith informs how you coach at a place like Yale, and just briefly share about that.
Well, Coach Shea actually has a great talk tonight, so all of you in the room could go to that. He's going to give you some great information on that. He's right back there if you guys were interested, so he's going to have a great talk. please attend that. That'd be awesome. In terms of, you said Drew, just winning in the locker room.
Yeah, just how you guys lay the foundation off the field.
I mean, I can't claim to lay it, but you know, Coach Shea's done an incredible job of building this culture. And you know, I'd say one of the many things, but one of the you know, I think biggest things that we talk about is an acronym we refer to as ONE, and it means only need everybody. Coach Shea and I think the rest of our staff does an incredible job at investing time in relationships on the field, off the field with every single guy on our team. And when I say every single guy, I mean every single guy. You know, we have guys who walk on that you know, have little to no chance to play. Some of them have you know, eventually worked their way up the ladder and gotten in a little bit. But just the investment and the investment from the leader of our program, like Coach Shea, to be willing to do that is not something that you see every day. And that concept, to be able to build a relationship, show those kids that you care, means you're going to have complete buy-in, you know, from 1 to 50 or however big your roster is when you do something like that. It's a lot of time. It might take away from something schematically. It might take away from something, you know, in the weight room, whatever it may be. But that is 100%, I think, the most important thing that we do, and one of the most important things that I think has led to our success. What was the second part of the question, Drew?
Just briefly share about how your faith foundation informs how you coach at Yale and how you treat young men, and just maybe a little tidbit. You're not at a Christian college like Alec, but it still gives you the opportunity to treat people a certain way.
Sure. So for me, and I think a lot of people, coach in the room, whether you're a player or you're a coach, you know, I think you kind of get wrapped up in this identity as an athlete, right? Or you get wrapped up in this identity as a coach. You know, so wins and losses impact us positively or negatively. You know, you kind of take that roller coaster ride. I think without a faith foundation, you know, my faith is, I think, for the most part, has helped kind of keep me level in those moments, although there's definitely days where it's harder than others. You know, I'm not going to sit up here and lie to you and tell you that there aren't days where after a loss I'm like questioning what I'm doing, you know, and questioning and pondering, you know, life, you know, and that's very dramatic, but it just, you know, I know that someone in the room is feeling that, or multiple people have felt that. You know, after you lose, you're like, should I be doing this? Am I even a good coach? You know, and having that identity and foundation in Christ, I think, to balance you out and realize at the end of the day, like, kind of like Alex said, you know, wins and losses, whatever, that doesn't matter. It's the journey, it's the process, and it's how we're doing things, how we conduct ourselves, how we coach our guys. And so that's helped me on a daily basis, I think, try to transfer that over, especially at Yale, where you have this incredibly high-level student athlete, you know, on both sides of that coin, where they're finding their identity in winning, they're finding their identity in playing time, they're finding their identity in how they do in the classroom. You know, Coach Shea kind of always says this, it's like, listen, if they're not, you know, being successful on the field, it's kind of hard for them to continue to work because they're finding their value in something that they're not that good at right now. You guys tracking with me there? And so for us, we really try to have those conversations that, hey, you're so much more than just a lacrosse player at Yale. You know what I mean? Like, you're way more, there's so much more meaning to who you are as just a person than what you're doing on the field. And so that's been something for me in how I coach, you know, how I try to treat every player that I coach, the relationships I build with them, that regardless of where they're at in the depth chart, that's something that I'm just willing to invest in, because at the end of the day, you know, we want to produce the best people that we possibly can. You know, we want to produce people that are going out in the workplace that are great, you know, great people in the workplace that are great fathers, you know, great husbands, great people in the community. And to do that, you know, you need to invest and treat people with that in mind, that their identity isn't wrapped up in that.
Awesome, thank you. Chris, just being part of a program who's recently won a national championship culture, just talk about maybe one thing that Loyola does to build a foundation that maybe separates them, something different that you've discovered as a player and now coach.
Yeah, so to Coach Simmel's point, a lot of it is really built off the field, and it's about those relationships that if you kind of develop them, and you hope, I mean, speaking from myself being a walk-on, you hope that that coach really dives in and buys into you, and at the end of the day, you're going to run through a wall for them. And whether you're an All-American, two-time type, finalist attackman, or maybe one of the lowest guys in the depth chart, if you have 50 guys buying in, it makes the biggest difference at the end of the day. So I think one of the biggest things we do actually at Loyola is in the fall, it is a Catholic university. We take the team out, we have a one-day fall break, we take the team for weekends out to a Loyola retreat house. And it's not as much about really the main Catholicism aspect of things and faith, but it's just really that team building. We have a couple guys, 2 or 3 seniors give talks, give reflection talks. And at that point, you find things that you may have never known as a kid, as a teammate, as a coach. Kids really open up, and we actually wait to vote for our captains until coming back from that weekend, which is pretty late. It's usually about the beginning of November, first week. So that's one thing that we kind of do, that it really just gets kids away from campus. Obviously with lacrosse being so big now, kids from all over the country now, West Coast, down south, it's usually that first chance to get a home cooked meal, to be honest. Kind of get out of that cafeteria food. So it's a chance just to get away, with the coach, the whole coaching staff, the whole team. And at that point, Coach Jimmy really believes in it and kind of coming back. And at that point, he thinks there's just a difference in the attitude of the team, the locker room. So that's one thing that I think we could really quickly just talk about that kind of builds that foundation for hopefully the season. Kind of leaning on each other as a teammate, as a coach, and kind of hopefully game by game. Obviously, there's usually going to be some downs, kind of bouncing back, kind of looking at each other and just saying what can we do to help one another. And just build off of that, hopefully one common goal at the end of the season.
That's great, Chris. Alec, just share briefly, first year, had some success, 10-5. I know all these coaches in the room are always looking for an edge. Maybe share just something that you guys did at Grove City that helped you guys have that success on the field, but was originated in the locker room or off the field, and it really built a culture to propel you guys to have that opportunity.
I think it's something, maybe not a one-time thing like Coach was talking about, which I think is awesome. We try and this is dangerous. I actually remember, like my second day in the office, I mentioned something like this to Coach, I said, don't do that. But we try and give the opportunity to the guys to speak in an appropriate way and about appropriate things. But for example, all fall we'll do after practice meet the freshmen, and so we'll ask them questions about their hometown and best place to eat, and whose sister, or who would you want to date your sister, or stuff like that. And the guys get a kick out of that. But then we'll ask them, like, give us a defining moment in your life, and without being prompted, and even the youngest guys on our team, those freshmen, they'll get really deep and really serious, like the switch flips, and they will share stuff with guys that they really don't know that well. Sometimes it's not a big deal, sometimes it's about how they came to faith, sometimes it's, but we've had some deep stuff, some dark stuff, some like traumatizing type stuff, some things that were really fresh and recent, and it's an opportunity for them to be known by their teammates. And like Coach said, there's something really powerful, I think, I can't remember who says it, but we all want to be known, and to allow them the opportunity to be known, and just allow them to be able to speak. And I think so often we just get caught up as coaches, like trying to tell them something and not letting them tell us something, or not letting them tell their peers something, and just providing that venue for them to do that. And from an X's and O's standpoint, that I think that is occasionally appropriate. Teach the rest of the guys the man up play, and you see like the guy really actually doesn't know it, or things like that. But I think more from a cultural and emotional and relational perspective, Coach Janowski was great at that. But tell us why this program is important to you. Tell us about the hardest thing you've ever been through. Tell us about a defining moment for you. Tell us about something that you struggle with now. And when they have to stand up in front of their peers, our guys are just like your guys. They're awkward, they're uncomfortable, they want to play Fortnite and text. And they, when you make them put that down and then also bring down that barrier, and they know each other like that, it's the relationships you'll find within your team. Like I think our guys really love each other in a different way than a lot of places that I've ever been before. Not because we're so smart, but because they are willing to be authentic and vulnerable with each other, which is pretty cool.
It's very cool. What you can say with it. I'm going to give you guys all three the same question. We're wrapping up here, but Alec, you've gotten to play and coach for a lot of Hall of Fame coaches, and just share one nugget of wisdom, and then Chris Andrew, I'll give you that. prep to think about the same question. Just one quick nugget that you took away from one of those coaches that you would like to share.
I may hijack your question, Drew, but we're actually we were having dinner with the Messiah guys who we hope to beat in the spring here last night. But we had a great conversation last night, and I would say maybe less something I've learned from other guys, but an encouragement that is really convicting for me every day. For the guys in the room that do have faith, I would challenge you with this as you leave here. Would you trade your record this year for the salvation of one guy on your team? And we're a Christian college, but not every kid that comes to us has a faith background. And I just think about, there's one that pops into my mind right away. Would I be willing to go 0-15 and take that blow to my ego and lose to everybody on the roster if it meant that his eternity was different? And most days I don't think that I would say yes, like without a doubt, and just really quickly. I still kind of want to win, and I'm still not sure that I would take that, 15 losses or whatever it would be. But at the end of the day, that's really the only thing that matters about what we do. And maybe that's not your perspective, but just to impact guys, would you trade your record that your men would be better men 20 years from now, that they would be better husbands, that they would be better leaders, that they would be better fathers? If you knew you were going to go 0-15, but could be guaranteed that they would be unbelievable fathers and husbands, would you take that trade right now? And if you can't, and again, I'm convicted of this all the time, but if you can't immediately say, yes, I would do that, your heart's probably not in the right place that day. And it's a really challenging thought, but I think it's going to help us this year just kind of be oriented in what really matters about what it is that we do. And I'm preaching to the choir, I think, for most of the guys in the room, but that recently has been something that's really stuck out to us as a staff.
That's great. Chris, just one quick nugget that you share with these guys.
Yeah, so I've been lucky, I've been blessed to be around so many awesome coaches, and kind of as Coach Jim said, it's tough to pick one, but I'll pick Coach Metzi, who's down at UNC at the moment. He was my coach my freshman year. Again, I was a walk-on, extremely low. I was actually lucky enough to, not lucky, but I missed practice twice a week, and due to a class conflict, and it just speaks to Coach Toomey and the staff for letting a walk-on still be on the team. So I'm lucky I haven't made it in that sense of things, but I missed practice twice a week, and I distinctly remember talking and calling Coach Metzi and said, what do I do? He said, no problem, just come by. And he sat with me for an hour and a half, 2 days a week by himself, just me and him, a bucket of balls, doing different stuff, film. And I think I was just so shocked that me, of all people, this little 150-pound freshman, I'm like, how is he doing this? So I think it just speaks to that he took the time out of his day, out of his week, just to spend with me. And it kind of speaks to Coach Stimmel's point of the relationship, and whether you're the top guy on the team, the lowest guy, if you treat everybody with that even respect and passion off with you guys, we'll see that and buy in, and at the end of the day, give back to you what you give into them. So I think that was my biggest takeaway, that hopefully I can quickly give that to you guys.
Awesome. Andrew, you got 30 seconds. Share how you win a national championship in 30 seconds. Go. Just one nugget.
Give the ball to Reese.
Okay.
But no, I would just say, just to echo what everybody says, that's kind of touched on your relationships are everything. For younger coaches in the room, the soft skills, the emotional intelligence, that stuff is at the end of the day, that's what's going to kind of make or break you in this profession. The X's and O's are great, but there's a ton of people in this room and out there across the U.S. right now that have great schematic knowledge, but you guys don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's it.
That's awesome. Why don't we give these guys a warm round of applause? Thanks so much, and I'm going to welcome head coach at Goucher College, Coach Brian Kelly, up here to wrap us up and get you guys your next session. Thank you.
Good morning, guys. First of all, just thank you very much for attending this morning. Thank you to the panelists, to Drew for facilitating, the conversation. Just want to close again in thanks. We're all here. Hopefully, again, there's some of us that are further down the line in a relationship, in a personal relationship with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and some guys that are far away and not connected at all. And to the guys that are far away and you don't feel connected, you're welcome. And we're thankful that you're here. And there is love from a loving God. There's so many messages that are out there that tell us that we're not loved, that the world, okay, is a dark and lonely place for so many people. And what I heard this morning from each one of these coaches is an investment in players, you know, and those relationships. And the biggest investment in relationship that I've found to take me out of darkness, you know, is the relationship with a loving God, Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, which is available to any one of us. It's a free gift. It's grace. You know, I don't deserve to be living right now with all the things that I've done in my past. I don't. You know, driving drunk, behind the wheel, you know, all those things. But somehow, some shape, some form, I'm here. I'm standing here because of the grace of God. And that is available to each and every one of us. And on this day, you know, I'm a Catholic, you know, so it's the feast day of the Immaculate Conception. Okay? Which, you know, if we believe in Jesus Christ, then on some level we believe in the Immaculate Conception. And as we approach, you know, the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ, we need to give thanks. We need to give thanks for all that we've been given. And I look at Richie Moran, and you know, as a young man, you know, I look up and I see this, just a legend, and I'm honored to be standing in your presence and having an opportunity to talk about a relationship with Jesus Christ, and given this platform to talk to you guys, humble national championship coaches. You know, it's amazing, right? And that's all because of God. You know, I don't deserve to be standing here, but I am. And I'm thankful for that. And it's all because of Jesus Christ. You know, there are cards on the table that we would love to collect information. There's a gift that we would like to, you know, to send. If you're willing to give us your information, fill that out. We'll send you a Bible. It'll be personalized with your name on it that you can carry, and you can find the life-changing, okay, message that's offered in this Bible. The light, the truth, and the hope that exists in these words. That Jesus Christ, okay, was sent here by a loving God to bring us out of darkness and to give us a life of abundance and a life that we can turn and invest in the young men in our lives. I spent 2.5 hours last night with a young man who said he hated himself, and if he's too much of a P word to pull the trigger. We have the opportunity. That's what we have, to invest in these young men that are feeling the same darkness that maybe some of us have felt. And we have that opportunity to breathe life into these young men, to bring them out of the darkness and to show them hope. And I hope, again, that those of us that are further down the line are going to be able to take the time to invest in the guys that are in this room that aren't as far down the line as we are. And the guys that are in this room that are looking for that personal relationship and are looking for a love from a loving God, it's there for you. And there are guys in this room that are willing to help you along that path and to get you to where you may want to be. So again, just so thankful for this opportunity, you know, to be able to stand up here and again, you know, give thanks. Give thanks to the Lord our God, okay, for all that we've done. And just would like to close, if you wouldn't mind bowing your heads, we'll pray. Good and gracious God, just thank you so much, Lord. Thank you for these men. Thank you for their hearts and their willingness to serve. The love that they have within their hearts, that hopefully, Father, that is inspired by you. May their eyes look upward to you. May they find the strength and peace in you, Father, that they need in the darkness, in the trials and tribulations that they encounter with these young men. May you be able to lift them up and carry them as they walk out of here and walk through their day. We started this foundation today, in this day, Father, connecting with you, hearing about you and how you have the life-changing word of hope and truth and life. Our foundation is in you today, Father. This is the day we have. It is a gift. Let us use it to honor and glorify you in all that we do. Let us present an image and likeness, Father, to the outside world that looks more like you and less like ourselves. I pray this in your heavenly name. Amen.